In about 2 weeks, the legal community will go to the polls to elect national officers of the Nigerian Bar Association. The INEC chair, or more appropriately, the chair of the Electoral Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olusegun Abimbola, is my guest on this episode of the program. He shares with Law Weekly some of the challenges his committee has had to deal with preparing for the polls. But more importantly, he speaks to what Nigerian lawyers should expect and gives the assurance that the polls will be credible. But also showing on the program today highlights from the recently concluded 26th Annual Bar Lecture of the NBA Ijebu-Ode branch, plus our recap of the top trending stories in the news. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shoyeli. It's countdown to election day for lawyers across the country. On Saturday, July 20th, 70,000 plus lawyers will vote electronically to elect national officers of the Nigerian Bar Association who will serve for the next 2 years. Elections expectedly come with a lot of hopes and expectations. Now, 3 candidates, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Afam Osigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Chukwuka Ikwazom, and Tobena Erojikwe have put themselves forward as presidential candidates to succeed outgoing President, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Yakubu Mekiao. One man and his team have been saddled with a very challenging task of conducting free, fair, and credible polls. A former NBA branch chairman, former Attorney General of Oyo State, and current chair of the Electoral Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Olusegun Abimbola, is my guest on today's episode of Law Weekly. I began the interview by asking him the level of preparedness of the Electoral Committee so far.
So far, basically we're prepared, we're set. All the preliminary issues are dotted and T's are crossed. By that I mean the voter list is out, is still out there. There was an initial publication by which we put it out for members to verify, and that required members to go on the website, and a lot of everybody did, and check whether their details were correct, particularly your phones, your email, your personal details were correct. If you found it incorrect, that means at the time of your entry, which would have been at the beginning of the year while paying the bar practice fees on the NBA portal, that means you made an incorrect entry at that point in time. So members had the opportunity to submit whatever needed correction at that point.
So people can clean up there.
Yes. But then that also comes with its own risks. For instance, Olusegun Abimbola, someone else who has seen my SCN number on my stamp can have access to say, oh, let me check his details, puts in my SCN number, sees my details, and submits that, oh, I want to change his phone number, and basically presents himself or herself as me. So those kind of submissions could also have come in the proposed submission. So what we had done was that at the point of making proposing those corrections, it was not automated. So it's not as if you just go online there, type in the corrections, and boom, it doesn't happen like that.
It's not automatic.
No, it was going to be captured on a Google form at the back end, and so we're still going to do several levels of filtrations. And so at the end of that verification exercise, I think we got over 9,000 submissions of people who supposedly needed to correct their data. Of those 9,000, after sifting, we realized that quite a significant number did not need to have filled that form at all, because the fresh details they submitted were the exact details they had already on the platform. So those ones were eliminated. Some submitted incomplete forms. They didn't put SCN, they didn't put other data, so we basically jettisoned those ones. So even if they needed correction, but because their forms were incomplete, we could not go ahead with it, so we jettisoned those. And several also submitted all sorts of different filtering through. We found out that only about 1,000 plus
out of 9,000,
out of the entire 9,000 actually submitted that they needed to either correct their phone numbers and leave the emails intact, or correct their emails and leave the phone number intact, or correct both phone and emails. In fact, the category of correcting both phone and emails were just 107. Just 107 people were in that category. So we had to go through other levels of filtration to ensure that the exact person whose data is on the voter list is the person asking for a correction. Unfortunately, there's so much deficits, trust deficits in Nigeria across sectors. So you find out that you send an email to someone, please send us your bar practicing fee receipt for us to validate that this belongs to this person. And they say, how do we know this person is from ECMB? You call somebody, they say, are you sure? Who is cooking? And all sorts of queries. So eventually you can do so much to convince. So those who cooperated, we were able to get their data. Those who didn't, we left it as it was in the original entry they made. So those who cooperated and submitted, and we saw that, okay, this belongs to this fellow, were able to amend what needed amendment. So the voters list has been out since the 28th of May, when we first published it. And after verification, we took it down to clean it up. And then it's been back up. If you go to www.ecmba.org and go to voters list, click voters list, you will see the page. All you have to do is type in your SCN number. Your Supreme Court number. Your Supreme Court number, enrollment number. Type it in, no spacing, SCN 1112223, whatever it is, and submit, and your data will pop up. You would only see your data. Why is that? Because what we're used to in the past is that you see the long list of voters from each branch who is qualified to vote. And then you can tell, oh, this person did not pay their practicing fees on time. Or this person is not eligible. And then you can weed out, even at the level of the candidates. Everybody can see who's voting and who's not voting and who is qualified and all of that. Well, first of all, once your name is on that voters list, it means you're eligible. Because if you did not meet the deadline of between 1st January and 31st March of payment of your BPF, your name will not be on the list. Payment of the bar practice. Yes, your name will not be on the list. So if your name is on the list, it means you're eligible. This year, we have 72,071 eligible. And we have put that information out there. So basically what we have done this year was to comply with laws that were not in force in previous years, particularly the Data Privacy Act. We now owe the obligation, if you are a custodian of other people's data, not to put it out there for the whole world to see. So we can't see everybody who is eligible to vote. If you look at the data that we are carrying, it contains very private information. Your SCN number is private to you. Your phone number is private to you. Your email address is private to you. The only thing that you may say maybe in the public domain is your name, gender, branch. And that will be an incomplete data list if we just put name, gender, branch. That's really saying nothing. It wouldn't raise a lot of issues. Exactly. So to ensure that, one, we keep your privacy private and we comply with extant laws, we have published the voters list in the manner in which we have to ensure that the list is there. You check, you see your name. That's really what you can't see any other. That's really what you should be concerned about, that you qualify. Why do you want to know whether I qualify? Why do you want to know whether someone else is on the list? Ask somebody else to go check by himself, and then he will know. But in any case, there's a process whereby if at the end of the elections we found out that people who were not eligible to vote actually did vote, there's some recourse that... No, down the road, for instance, we are ongoing with the voter sensitization part of our program. And we are going around various zones. We've done Lagos, Ogun branches. On Monday, July the 8th, we're going to be in Abuja. I think 8th or the 9th. We're going to be in Abuja, which takes care of the North Central states and the branches under those states. And then on the 13th, we're going to be in Ibadan to cover Oyo State, Osun State, Ekiti State branches for voter sensitization. What's the purpose of voter sensitization? We are we are doing electronic voting. Not everyone is familiar with that process. And so we have to put the necessary information, instructions, steps, and we have also put together a video that's just a 2-minute video, which we are also going to broadcast even after the voter sensitization. It will be on everybody's phone, so you can actually follow it step by step. At the end of casting your ballot on the day of election, you will receive an authentication code that gives you the confirmation that you have voted. Now that code is what is going to be useful for post-voting audit.
Let's talk about the voting platform. That's another one that a lot of controversies always trail. There have been some allegations in some quarters that candidates were not carried along in the choice of the voting platform. How did the ECMBA arrive at the platform that it is choosing to use, and how transparent was that process?
The Constitution provides the guidelines for all that we have done and all that we are doing, either in the choice of our technical service consultant or in the choice of our voting platform service provider. And what is the process? You post out a bid. So we posted a request for proposals, and that was out there for about 3 weeks. We received, for the voter service provider, we must have received, I think, about 17 proposals, both local and foreign, and even consortium. We received that, went through a forced filtration process. They were shortlisted, I think, to about 9 or 7, I can't remember. And then we had technical reviews. We had financial reviews, shortlisted to 3. We also subjected them to the regular kind of tests that electronic platforms will have to be subjected to, and all of that. So these are part of the things we are still going to put before the stakeholders at the stakeholders meeting, so that they will see that we got all those certificates. We obtained certifications from the provider in terms of the certification of that platform and of the processes they have adopted. Other than become God myself, I think we have covered the field as humanly possible.
As delegates are voting, as those who are eligible are voting, are we able to see the numbers move by 1, increase by 1 as you vote, so that it's, even if it doesn't say who you voted for, but we can follow the increase in real time?
Well, as you vote in the situation room, the candidates, their agents in the situation room can follow real time. The candidates and the agents will be able to follow real time.
And then as the delegate who is voting from a remote location, I can see it increase by 1.
As a delegate, you will have a different view from what those in the situation room will have. And there is a go.ecmba.org platform where vote counts, we're working towards having some form of display on that platform.
But what would you say have been your greatest challenges so far in this assignment?
Well, I would say that we're working against set minds. The default mode of the average Nigerian is, are you sure? What if that's what they told us last time? Those kind of, so it's taken quite a bit of effort to prove to people that, look, this is not business as usual. We have no horse in the race. We have no skin in the game. What you see is what you get. We're basically following a process.
I want to round up by talking about, something you mentioned earlier, the trust deficits that, a lot of people have, which is what you said was one of the greatest challenges that you faced. What is your message, on a final note to voters as per the process about getting an election that would reflect the wishes of the majority and assure them that the elections are credible?
Well, what I would say, which I've said to many chairmen, members in the course of voter education, is you have seen what we have done so far. We have not given you any reason to doubt any part of this process. We have answered your questions. We have put information before you. I think we have sufficiently demonstrated that we are going to do this as it ought to be done. We have followed the Constitution. Yes, naturally, folks that were disqualified would have angst. It's not out of place. One person will still be a winner for each of the offices. It can never be two. So for as long as you know there will have to be a winner, somebody will have to lose, then respect the process and don't burn down the house because you did not win. And so I just want to encourage supporters, candidates, that so far we have not given you any reason to doubt that process. As you have believed in it so far, believe it till the end.
Away from the interview, let's go all the way to Ogun State, where the NBA Ijebu-Ode branch recently held its 26th annual bar lecture. It had the theme, the law, the bar, the society. Here are some of the highlights from that event.
In the last 26 years of its existence, the annual bar lecture of the Nigerian Bar Association, Ijebu-Ode branch, has continued to provide the much-needed opportunity for reunion and a veritable avenue to chart a new course of development for the association. This year's edition, which held at the Chris Ogubanja Center in Erunwa, Ijebu-Ode local government area of Ogun State, was well attended by members of the bar and the bench, traditional and religious leaders, and many others. In attendance are the newly sworn-in chairman of the NBA, Ijebu-Ode branch, Chief Fasi Yusuf, the Ogbeni Oja of Ijebu-Land, Chief Sonny Kuku, a former deputy governor of Ogun State, Adegbenga Kaka, among other distinguished personalities. The Ogun State Chief Judge, Justice Musumola Dikpeolu, represented by Justice Larry Onafo-Oko, set the tone for the lecture as she challenged members of the bar and the bench to uphold the sacred principle of integrity, fairness and equity in their dealing in the society.
Lawyers should respect the nobility of this profession in their service to the society. The very essence of a lawyer's call is to obey the law and uphold it, to serve humanity by diligent study and true counsel of the law, to aid in solving the questions and guiding the business of society according to the law, to protect society against injustice by enforcing all rights and redressing all wrongs.
The guest lecturer, the senior advocate of Nigeria, Adeyinka Kotoye, emphasized the need for practitioners to use the instrumentality of the law to reform, shape and develop the society. He, however, disagreed with the call for INEC to conduct local government elections in the country.
I have read some news items where it is reported that some top government functionaries in this administration have proposed that the election into all the 774 local government councils be conducted by INEC. I totally and wholeheartedly disagree with this suggestion. It is not only intrudesive but also a complete anathema to the avowed principle of federalism anywhere in the world. I think we need to have a rethink, and like I said earlier, the NBA cannot afford to be silent on this issue. The NBA should take charge and should take the lead.
The event also witnessed the inauguration of the new 10-man executive committee of the branch led by Chief Fasi Yusuf, who promised a renewed focus and direction.
We thank our elders, the outgoing executive committee members, and the generality of our members for the confidence reposed in us. We shall not fail nor falter in piloting the affairs of the branch for the next 2 years.
Individuals who have contributed to the growth and development of the NBA Ijebu-Ode branch were also recognized and appreciated.
And in Abuja, the section of business law of the NBA also held its 18th annual International Business Law Conference and 20th anniversary. It was a display of intellectual conversation, prime networking, among others. Here's a short recap of some of the highlights from there.
Over and over again, I hear people undermining the power of survival, the importance of survival. For us, given the challenges that we're facing as a nation, and perhaps even though we're here at the conference and having a great time, perhaps not all of us are feeling some of the pains and difficulties that are out there. But to some other lawyers, the issue of survival is not an academic exercise. Whether they're going to survive enough to thrive is not an academic exercise. To end, please do not be ashamed to be trying to survive.
With these words, the chairman of the NBA section on business law, Dr. Adeoye Adefolu, set the tone for the stimulating conversations that followed. Speaker after speaker spoke to the theme of the conference, Survive and Thrive.
Like all of us are doing, and you thrive, then what that does to you, and maybe to encourage each and every one of us, is that implicit in this theme is purposefulness, it is focus.
I'd just like to urge all the members to please continue to play your part, please continue to volunteer, please continue to collaborate. So please support the business reforms. There's always the trust deficit, but we have to survive and we have to thrive. Thank you and have a good evening.
After the opening dinner ceremony, the chair of the conference planning committee explained the rationale for the theme.
Survive and thrive is a mantra. It is a positive affirmation. Is that will to go the extra mile to make sure that we survive and thrive. And as an organization, part of what we've done over the years as SBL is to create value, constant creation of value so that people can survive and thrive.
The keynote speaker, the Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, was represented by former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, who gave some practical suggestions to government at all levels for ameliorating the plight of the citizenry.
You will know the Central Bank that I was had done a lot of liquidity injection, and that, this is not rocket science. The price of exchange rate, the price of foreign exchange, which is exchange rate, is determined by demand and supply, factors. So when you have, liquidity surfeit that we've had, driving this, chasing the same quantum of foreign exchange, you definitely will have a problem. And that's why we have an exchange rate of 1,400 that we've had today. So we've had removal of subsidy on PMS, which has driven PMS prices. We've had adjustment in exchange rate, which has driven the exchange rate to 1,400. We've had power energy subsidy removed, which has also driven the cost of energy. This has brought considerable pressure on inflation, which today is about 33.95 percent, and obviously prices of goods and services have skyrocketed. So survival is a major issue, and I think that is what we seek to address here.
And just before we go, a quick look at some of the major court stories we tracked this week.
We begin with the report that the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has reserved judgment in the appeal filed by Murtala Ajaka, the governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, in the November 11, 2023 Kogi State governorship elections, and his party challenging the judgment of the State Election Petition Tribunal, which affirmed Ahmed Ododo of All Progressives Congress, APC, as elected governor of the state. Now, a three-member of justices of the appellate court reserved judgment on Thursday in the appeal to a date that will be communicated to parties after the adoption of all the briefs they filed in the matter. While adopting the processes filed on behalf of the appellants, their counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Pius Akubo, urged the court to set aside the judgment of the Kogi State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal and declare Mr. Ajaka as the governor of Kogi State. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, in his own submission on Ododo's behalf, says the tribunal was right to have expunged the evidence of the first prosecution witness, having declared it inadmissible, and added that the appellants failed to prove the allegation of overvoting in their petition. He urged the court to dismiss the appeal and affirm the judgment of the tribunal which upheld the election of Governor Dodo. The same Abuja division of the Court of Appeal has reserved judgment in the appeal filed by the All Progressives Party (APC) and its governorship candidate Timipre Silva against the judgment of the Bayelsa State Governorship Election Tribunal, which affirmed the election and return of Governor Doyediri and his deputy. The three-member panel of the appellate court, led by Justice James Gambo Abundaga, reserved judgment in the appeals after the adoption of written submissions by counsel to the respective parties. The respondents' counsel had, while adopting their separate briefs of argument, all took their turns in urging the court to dismiss the appeals with substantial cost. The Justice Adekunle Adeleye-led three-member tribunal that sat in Abuja affirmed the re-election of Governor Doyediri of Bayelsa State after dismissing the petition filed by Mr. Silva and APC for lacking in merit. But dissatisfied with the judgment, the former Minister of State and his party approached the Court of Appeal for the setting aside of the judgment on the grounds of miscarriage of justice. And we round off with the report that Justice Inyangeko, sitting in Abuja, has held that the governorship primary election held by the People's Democratic Party in Edo State on February the 22nd, which produced Asue Ighodalo as the party's candidate, is invalid. In the judgment, Justice Eko held that the decision of the PDP to exclude 378 elected ward delegates from participating in the primary election was a violation of the provision of Article 50, subsection 3 of the Constitution of the party. The judgment was on a suit filed on February the 8th by Honorable Kelvin Mohammed and others on behalf of the 378 ad hoc delegates, whose names and election results appear on exhibits bid 8A to 8. The judge held that there is no doubt that the second defendant, the PDP, neither complied with the relevant provision of its constitution nor the electoral guidelines for primary elections of 22nd February 2024, and the decision of the PDP not to include the plaintiffs in the governorship primaries for which they were elected at the Ward Congress was arbitrarily done.
And that's the program for today. Do remember to check out the Channels TV website for a replay of this episode of the program, as well as past episodes. Please also send in any feedback via our social media handles. I'm Shola Sheyele. Thank you for watching and see you next week.